Welcome to another episode of The InEVitable. This is MotorTrend's look at the future of the car. What are we going to be driving? EVs, electrified vehicles, plug-in hybrids, hydrogen fuel cell vehicles.
Will we be driving it all?
Will we be driving it all? What's it going to look like? Let's find out. Today's guest is somebody I've been dying to chat with. He's a very well-known automotive host, influencer, if you will.
Authority,
good friend of yours.
Really good friend of mine, yep.
You've been on his podcast a number of times. I have not. It's weird.
That is weird.
The one and only Matt Farah, host, inventor, founder, whatever, of the Smoking Tire podcast, which is also a YouTube show. Been in the game for a really long time.
Yeah, I mean, I've been working parallel with Matt for 17 years, 18 years. We realized the other day we've only worked together, not counting his podcast, only worked together once. We made one video together where I actually shaved in his signature, at the time, his signature sideburns to try and imitate his look. It's an Audi R8 video, Smoking Tire. I would look it up. It's one of the best videos ever made. It's really, really good.
But we're going to talk to him about a bunch of stuff. We're going to run out of time, I predict, because there's just too much stuff.
What is time, Ed? What is time?
But we should probably just go right and get into it. So please welcome Matt Farah.
Hi, Matt.
Hi, guys.
The tables are turned.
Yes. It's a nice table.
How many times, I'm just curious, have I been a guest on your podcast? I have no idea.
It's got to be 15.
Yeah. Oh, more than that.
Maybe more.
Yeah.
It's a lot. Yeah, I think you're the most frequent guest.
Nice.
That's great, because I've never been on it. Wow. And you've done, by my research, 737 episodes.
Yeah. 738 I recorded this morning.
So this is awkward. But this is perfect, because this is the intro I wanted to do, which is you guys obviously know each other really well.
LA Jews.
Yes. And you
we run things, haven't they told you?
Right. And you're in the car in the auto industry. You know a lot of people. This is not a very long podcast. There's a high chance that we can go off and tell some wonderful stories about people we know and completely lose our audience in the first second. Like between name drops and jargon.
Don't inside baseball it? Is that what you're saying?
So, and this is at the direction of the person who's paying for this. My CFO keeps telling me, like, your podcast sucks. You guys just go immediately over my head. You guys talk about the stuff, and it looks very fun. It looks very funny. But so I'm just going to
thought it was if you're having a good time, the audience will have a good time. No?
So I'm just going to be the guy that Johnny loves this. He's already like, whatever.
You're going to ref it?
I'm going to try to just try to insert, like, when we go crazy, like.
I'm just going to say let's have some good content.
Yes, exactly. Which we'll try to do, but we'll also try to make sure this is, accessible to the broadest audience possible.
Sure. But let's get into Matt.
Let's talk about specific locations in Los Angeles. And
yeah.
Totally.
Our favorite restaurant.
Specific LA friends.
The most obscure thing you can imagine.
So Vinny Russo was saying.
Yeah.
So the most fun I had in terms of doing the background research on you is that you really should have your own Wikipedia page, and you don't.
I don't?
You don't. But you
I'm
have
afraid to look, but I figured I would.
You have these sort of bootleg ghetto Wikipedia pages.
That's really funny.
And the first two, they don't allow you to copy paste for some reason. So I was like, God, how do we build this thing? So I had to like type it in. I found the third one.
I wish I didn't know any of this.
It's quite remarkable. But for those who don't know who Matt Farah is, born in Venice Beach. LA.
No, that's wrong.
Really?
No, I was born in New Jersey.
I was going to say, yeah.
Holy moly.
Jersey. I spent the
first, you're from Venice Beach.
I live in Venice Beach now.
Yes, you're from Venice Beach.
Yeah, I spent most of my childhood in Atlanta, and then I went back to New York for my pubescent and high school years. I went to University of Pennsylvania. I did go to Penn.
Woo!
I thought I was going to be a car designer. Turns out that's really hard. Don't want to do that.
You got a BFA in photography.
Yeah, that's what I did instead.
This is wild. So this is the part where I can just get this guy out of the way. So are you like still a big camera photo nerd? Was it like I love photo, I don't love like BFAs typically are like, I'm here for the art.
My degree kind of was.
Right.
Yeah. I got my degree 2000 to 2004 at Penn and shooting film.
Yes.
So I was shooting
medium
and large format. So I did my senior thesis on an 8x10 camera.
Okay. A horseman?
It was a Toyo.
A Toyo,
but it was
okay.
with the bellows
Yeah,
and
yeah,
the
yeah,
hood.
yeah.
You know,
Oh, no
it
kidding.
came in like a giant box. It was the whole deal.
Wooden tripod.
Yeah.
Ansel Adams
It was,
style.
yeah,
Yeah.
it was so heavy. I was really like a martyr for the cause, lugging this thing around.
What were you shooting with it?
Landscape,
Nudes. Oh.
architecture, and I did do some nudes in college that I recently found
Oh,
when my
sweet.
parents moved, and I'm absolutely ashamed
Nice.
of the kind of stuff I was doing. Landscape and architecture mostly.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sweet.
And then what were you shooting medium format?
Same landscape and architecture.
but,
the camera?
camera, yeah.
Oh,
I'm a dork.
so you don't want to lose your audience.
Yeah, exactly. The
Nuances
audience is
of
left.
medium format film cameras.
Hasselblad.
They're out
I
there.
shot a Mamiya RZ67.
Okay,
Which,
very cool.
Hasselblads are awesome, but that's a square
Yeah.
negative. The Mamiya, you could spin the back, so
Yes.
you could have a
Okay.
horizontal or
you could do
or a
landscape or
vertical.
portrait.
And
yes.
6x6 for Hasselblad, 6x7,
6x7, yeah.
which is almost close to the ideal magazine
Right.
format. It's why, what's her name?
Leibowitz.
Leibowitz
Yeah.
uses a Mamiya almost exclusively.
Yeah,
Although,
I loved that camera. Wish I
Yes.
still had it.
Yes.
My favorite camera of all time is the Fuji 6x17. This
Okay.
panoramic
Right.
one that shoots a negative that's like literally this.
Doesn't it have like bars on the front or something? Is
It has a little
weird-
cage
Yeah,
thing
yes,
that
yes,
holds the lens up.
yes.
Yeah, it's neat.
Okay.
You guys should do a camera podcast on
Have
realizing.
you had
I'm on-
Larry Chen on yet?
not yet.
I go deep in the weeds with Larry
Not
Chen.
yet.
I'm
on
auditioning
cameras.
right now.
Yeah.
So,
But that career ended very quickly when the DSLR and Craigslist came out.
Yes.
That was the end of my photography career.
well,
Wait, real quick. Why
Why
Craigslist?
Craigslist? Yeah.
What did?
Oh, because anyone who could buy a DSLR
Was a
and
photographer.
go on Craigslist and could just undercut any
right.
professional's pricing.
Sure.
It was that was the year of good enough is good enough.
Right.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay.
It's come back.
That's when
since
we
then.
became journalists.
I was like, maybe this YouTube thing is something.
right. So okay, well that's great because that set up the timing. So you were there that's 2004 you graduated? Okay.
Yeah.
And then how soon after I have in this again from these bootleg Wikipedia pages, you worked on Gotham Dream Cars. You worked
Yeah,
at
I
several
worked-
car dealerships.
I worked at a couple car dealerships. I worked at an exotic car rental company, Gotham Dream Cars.
Okay.
I started a car wash with my friend Larry Casilla, who's now one of the best detailers in the world. And he's probably got some interesting stories for you guys in the future if you ever have him on. But and at that car wash, we started a little driving club. Because we wanted people to get their cars dirty so they'd come back and get them washed. It was
That's
a
genius.
real yeah.
This was out here or
This is in New York.
In New York, okay.
And then YouTube launched, and I said, hey, maybe we could make videos of our drives and put them on YouTube, and people would think that we were cool.
2000.
November 06. It was 3 months
Wow.
after YouTube launched.
Holy moly!
Yeah, yeah.
Are you like you're not the first guy on first automotive guy on YouTube?
Pretty early. I don't know if it's the first, but pretty early. Pretty early.
That's well ahead of us.
Yeah, I think there was someone putting Street Fighter. No, Fastlane Daily was I think the first.
That was before Garage 419.
Yeah. Fastlane
Can I ask
Daily
you a
was
question?
first,
So
yeah.
Matt, I knew Matt because there was this guy who had these like insane sideburns that was on this program, Garage 419, and I used to. We talked about this on
Those
your
sideburns
show.
ruled.
Yes, they did. But like I'd ask Davey Johnson. I'm like who who is this guy? And he'd be like, oh, that's fair. He's really cool. He's got a Pearl Jam tattoo, but aside from that, he's really cool.
Aside from having a Pearl Jam tattoo, I've remained committed to Pearl Jam.
You have, but so it was like your talk show. It was kind
So
of like
I was
your
making
podcast.
videos for this car wash. That was what I was doing. This guy Emil Rensing saw the videos
Right.
and said, "I would like to put you on my multi-channel network."
Right, MCN.
And at
baby.
the time, the multi-channel network did not exist in virtual space.
Right.
Everyone went into one building to make videos.
Oh wow.
And so there was the big one that came out of that. Fastlane Daily was the longest running continuous series in the history of YouTube for 15 years, whatever it was.
Right.
And then do you remember Obama Girl?
Yeah.
Yes.
Remember that? Yeah, I bet you haven't thought about her in a
No.
while.
It's
been a couple
Obama
years.
Girl was the big breakout star of that. And then in the crash, Google bought it all, and I lost my gig.
And Garage 419. I've been meaning to ask you this for 17 years. What does that mean? What did
It's
Garage?
the stupidest name in the world.
Yeah. What does it mean?
The address of the building was 419 Park Avenue.
Oh.
Everyone thought it was a weed reference.
Oh.
420,
Yeah.
which it wasn't.
Okay.
Although High Times was the floor above us, and for them, it was a weed reference. The most interesting thing about that address is that the ground floor of that building was a restaurant called Leal, which you may have
Yes,
heard of.
Anthony
because it was
Bourdain's restaurant.
Anthony
Yeah,
Bourdain's
sure, of
restaurant.
course.
Oh my God,
yeah.
I've eaten there.
Yeah.
Yeah. Good steak frites.
Yes,
Very
that's
good.
what
Oh,
my
that's,
product
I never
was.
knew. I thought it was like you had a bay and
No,
some
it's
track
dumb.
somewhere. Yeah.
No, it was stupid. It
worked.
Emil came up with that name. It meant absolutely nothing.
Did you ever see Bourdain?
No, he
Had already. That was.
I think we missed each other by like a year, but we ate at that restaurant
yeah.
like all the time.
Sure.
Because it was there.
And good.
And it was pretty
good.
Yeah.
R.I.P. Bourdain.
Yeah, no, he was obviously a big inspiration for
Yeah.
what a lot of us do. And JF, when I was working with JF Musial, we would reverse engineer episodes of No Reservations. Like we'd literally have a spreadsheet and go through frame by frame and go from 0 to 3 seconds, Anthony walks down the street. From 3 to 4 seconds, it's montage of city background. And like frame, we did it with Top Gear and we did it with...
Oh, no
Bourdain.
kidding.
Yeah,
Wow.
like the
Huh.
spreadsheets are wild. We figured out the formula.
Interesting. How many times would you do that before you figured out like this is like
We did 3
like
or 4.
like a playbook?
3 or 4 episodes. The most interesting thing to come out of that was that Anthony almost never said anything interesting to camera, and certainly never said anything controversial to camera.
It was always in VO
Anything of substance was done in VO later.
Right.
because he's a writer.
Yeah, and he was a good conversationalist, so he would prompt other people to say interesting things in person. But all of the real depth of that show was done in VO.
The
later.
VO, yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
Okay.
The value.
I sort of
So
picked
let-
up on that without ever analyzing it. But
Yeah.
Let's go back just a hot second. So you said worked at several dealerships selling
Yeah.
selling cars?
No, like literally like
Worked.
crappy jobs,
Oh,
like
okay.
lot boy level stuff.
What
right?
dealership? What brands?
The first one was Miller Motor Cars in Greenwich, Connecticut.
Oh, fancy schmancy.
Yeah, which is fancy. Literally, like washing their front line.
so you're not the Chevy Hoboken,
Dude,
No,
no, but I
Okay.
got my car from the Corvette guy in Paramus,
Okay.
whatever his name was, like the Corvette King of Paramus, New Jersey.
Wow.
It was Miller Motor Cars.
That's a movie right there.
Yeah, right. And then I worked at a Porsche Audi dealer in Englewood, New Jersey, which is
Right.
where I will be taking delivery of my very first brand new Porsche in like a week.
Oh,
from
is
that dealer.
it that soon?
It's that
coming
same
up?
day.
Nice.
Yeah, it's on the boat, baby.
Well, again.
Fingers crossed.
So he had a Porsche that sank to the
They
bottom of
sank
the
my
Atlantic
first one.
Ocean.
Ah.
Ruby Stone Red,
Not
GT.
Ruby Stone, Frozen Berry Metallic.
Sorry. Frozen
Pink.
Berry Metallic,
Yeah.
pink.
Again, we go into Porsche. This is a theme.
GT4 RS? No,
it's a Spider.
It's Spider.
Boxer
Spider.
Spider.
That's
Yeah,
right.
yeah.
Yeah.
Nice.
So-
That he's ripping the engine out before he drives it and putting in a 4.5 liter
Yes.
that makes 560
70.
horsepower.
Well,
okay.
this was one of my questions.
Sure.
So how and we're going to eventually get to what is inevitable in this conversation. But
Oh, don't worry.
like
I
how
like EVs, don't worry.
how early did the vehicle passion start?
It's like super early. Yeah, it felt like I mean, my grandma used to say that I could like identify different cars by their wheels because that was all I was tall enough to see. I was always into cars and sports cars. Like my dad, even before I could read, would bring me car magazines. I'd make my parents take me to these like gray market importers in Atlanta. To see all the newest Ferraris and Lamborghinis that were like 308s and stuff, Countachs that were coming.
But where'd that
in.
come from? From your parents? Were they car people?
Not
Or-
really. No, I mean, I don't know. I can't trace it to an outside influence. It's just like when I got my first car magazine and saw sports cars.
MotorTrend, right? Obviously,
instantly.
no. I mean, this is a car and driver road track.
I was.
guy.
Road and Track was my.
Yes.
Was my
I was
my
I was
magazine.
car and driver automobile,
Yeah.
and then a little road and track.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Road and Track was my magazine, but just because that was the first one, you know, it just.
We should announce also you have a new job at Road and Track.
I'm
You're
the editor at large of Road and Track now.
That's
which
not new. Is that
it's a
new?
nice. It's new as of 3 months ago.
Yeah,
It's a
okay.
nice.
Well,
it's
It's
a
on.
nice
It's
circle.
already on your.
It's on the
your,
fake
Wiki-
Wikipedia.
page.
Okay, cool.
But aren't you now officially editor at large of MotorTrend?
No, I don't know what I am. No,
think that-
head of
I think we have
editorial.
two editor
I took,
at
I took
larges.
that. Yeah,
It's
that
Editor at
that's
large
fine.
sounds like they can't find me.
right.
I'm lost somewhere.
Which
Fun
is
fact: I used to work at
appropriate.
Road and Track a long time ago.
That's true.
For about a year.
That's true.
So, yeah.
So yeah,
All right. This is great.
my
So-
dad did have a Saab. That was in the 80s. That
Saab
meant
900.
It was a 900 turbo,
Yeah.
And that was
which
quirky.
that was his first like kind of nice car.
I remember, it's funny you said, I remember my friend's dad got a Saab, and my dad's like, you have to go see this. And I would have been about 10 years old. He's like, it's from Sweden.
Yeah.
You know? And he's like, and the key is between the seats.
The key being between the seats was like that and the night mode that turned off the whole thing.
But I remember being 10 and just being mesmerized by, because for some reason I never saw a Porsche, but the key not being where it was on every other car, like blew my mind.
Yeah.
Just couldn't get over it.
What really blew my mind, like the first time my mind was actually blown in person with a car was when my dad came home. He came home with an LS 400.
Oh yeah.
With that, and that was like, that might as well have been a spaceship. The gauges where the whole thing blacked out, and there was just lights, and the materials, like all of that was like so far beyond anything else.
I remember, I've told this story in print before, but like when the LS400 came out, so Ed and I kind of grew up out in Thousand Oaks area. He was in Camarillo, but at the
suburb of Los Angeles.
Yeah, suburb of LA. But at the he was an ambassador, Nesson. It was Nesson Lexus. He had Cadillac, he had Land Rover. Anyways, it was like my dad's like, we're going. It was like a Friday night or something, and they had an LS 400 there, and everyone's like, oh, it's a Japanese car that costs $40,000. No way! And we stood there, and like the stories they told, like it can go 1,000,000 miles without needing a tune-up. Everyone's making stuff up, but it was like
most of those things they were making up probably came true.
But totally.
Oh yeah, they've got them. Oh, you had one that went 1,000,000 miles.
I had a Lexus with 1,000,000 miles on it.
I just read up on I was looking at a vehicle like, oh, I should probably buy one of these, future classics, and I reread the history of the LS, and also reread.
Did you read The Relentless Pursuit, the book?
You know what it was? No, it was you posted a picture, or Bosom posted that he bought an S.
Yeah, he bought an S class.
He bought an S
W140.
W140.
Yeah,
so our colleague Bosom Wasef.
That's a '90s S class.
Bought like, they claim it's the last of the S class flagship vehicles when Mercedes was an engineering company, not a marketing company. Its direct competitor was the LS. So I read those back to back, and I read the 7 Series of the era. The price of that LS 400 was $30,000 cheaper than the competitive Germans, and it kicked their
It's
ass.
every bit as nice of a car.
Well, remember
hard.
the W140 was a reaction to the LS because Mercedes is like, oh no, like
Yeah, because I think the 140 came out 2 years later. 2 years after.
Yeah, the LS was like 90.
90 was the first.
89,
89, 90,
90.
90 model year.
And they said the factoid I remember from the article I was reading is that they said something like 12% of the first year's sales of LS went to competitors who were taking them apart.
Yeah.
And like
Yeah,
saying,
I
the guys
remember the Cadillac guys said
like,
they just said we can't
do this. We can't do this. We can't do
And they
this.
went, nah.
I mean, there was something crazy stat because I did a story on that car, but it was like 1,000,000 kilometers of development, which was a factor of
and $1 billion
in 1985 money,
right.
86 money. So that's like $20 billion.
The market research
today.
they did, they bought homes in Palos Verdes. They put guys on the lawns looking into people's, what do they have in their garage? What are they driving? What are they eating? And then they did
That's not all they were doing.
Right. That's true. And then they developed an entire ad agency out of Saatchi called Team One that was devoted.
Which still does Lexus.
Not only Lexus, but primary client is Lexus, and including the name research. Originally, the first name was supposed to be Luxus, L-U-X.
They made the right call there.
Right, but
that book is the book is called The Relentless Pursuit, and it's 350 pages.
Oh, I got it.
I'll give it to you. I have a copy.
Okay.
Yeah, if you want to borrow it,
I would love
happily
to.
give
I'll get it
on
Kindle.
Those are my favorite kind of books.
Yeah.
But let's so we're establishing Matt Farah's
We're all car nerds.
car credibility.
This table is a bunch of nerds.
I have some credibility.
What first
Not according to I can give you a list.
Yeah.
First car you took your driver's test in.
Habibi. 1996 Mercury Villager Nautica.
Yes.
You had the Nautica.
Oh, we had two Nautica.
Minivan.
We had one. We had a 94 and then a 96.
91.
Maybe it was 96, 97. Yeah.
Wow.
91 Toyota Previa.
Oh, dude, an egg-shaped. That's a fabulous vehicle.
86 Integra.
Okay.
There you go. That's a good one too.
It was great.
The Villager Nautica edition was exceptional.
Was that your high school ride?
It was my mom's car.
Okay.
And I got it until I actually I had a few different cars in high school. My first high school car, I convinced my dad to sell me that Lexus, which was 5 years old at the time, for like, money.
Right.
I'm air quotesing money, but it was like
his own money. He's give back to him.
no, actually one of the things that I think I went to like a super ritzy Jewy private school, and one of the things that I think my parents did right.
He can say that because he's Jewish. Just,
Yeah.
So
Look,
clear.
I'm wearing my bar mitzvah bracelet.
Okay.
But one of the things
I just saw Ed like, oh.
You don't have to bleep that.
I talk about Jews a lot. One of the things that separated me, I think, that was a wise decision my parents made, was they did make me get a job and earn. I probably got a nicer car than I could really afford, but I had to at least go to work and put in the time to make some money.
Okay.
So I bought the car off my dad for probably what was, half market value or whatever.
And you were what, 16?
16.
Nice.
Yeah. But I've been working I was working at Foot Locker. I was selling shoes with the ref shirt on.
Nice.
And I think I gave him, $6,000 or $7,000 for the car that was probably worth 20.
Right.
And I drove that for a year, and then I said, Dad, can I trade this in, and get whatever value I can get out of it? So I traded it in, plus another year of my Foot Locker savings, and got a Subaru Legacy GT.
Huh.
Which was a good car.
Great car.
It was a very good car.
What didn't you like about the Lexus?
It didn't. It was awful in the winter, and where I was from in New York, it did snow a lot.
Okay.
And I wanted to drive stick. I wanted a manual transmission car,
Fair.
and I also wanted something. My friends had started to buy Mustangs and modify them, and I wanted something that I could maybe modify a little bit.
Okay.
In the pre-WRX era of Subaru,
Yeah, that was the car.
You couldn't modify very much,
Right.
But
the Legacy GT.
the Legacy GT was
It's a cool
the
car.
best we got.
Yeah, I was wondering why big body sedans, but
It wasn't that big,
Right.
but I couldn't. I wanted the 2.5 RS, but there was like a real long waiting list for that,
okay.
and there was also a real long waiting list for the Prelude, the '98 Prelude. You laugh, but it was going to take 6 months
That's
to get a
square
Prelude.
headlight.
No, I laugh. Just I only want to tell you what Mike Bumbeck years ago described. We drove a Citroen DS around, and I'm like, "What do you think?" And he's like, "Oh man," he's like, "It's got the ride quality of a '71 Lincoln and the handling of an '88 Prelude."
Oh,
and
wow.
I was like, "That's the best description
pretty
ever."
good. Yeah, that's pretty
it's a
good.
compliment to the.
So I ended up in the Legacy GT.
Is that the car you took to college?
No, after about a year, I got rid of the Legacy GT, and I had a '94 Mustang GT. All my friends had Mustangs, so I wanted a Fox body like they all had.
Oh, okay.
And my mom and dad said, you can get rid of the Legacy and get a Mustang, that's fine, but it has to have airbags. So the '94 was the one that had airbags.
That's the SN95.
Yes, correct.
Yes.
The rounded one.
Yes.
And we did some engine work and some suspension work, and it was pretty cool, actually. It was a nice car.
What was the radio called? Did you have the Tornado?
The Mach 1 or Mach something, Mach 400 or something like that. It had Mach in the name for sure. No, you're thinking of
it's a Monsoon.
The Monsoon. That was out of I had a Hummer later,
Right.
and that came with a Monsoon.
Okay.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
I had that Mustang. I took it to college where the roads of Philadelphia promptly
Destroyed it.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
And ended up
Philly's
getting-
really hard on cars.
Philly's rough. Philly and Boston are the two
Because
roughest
I
places
think of
on
New
cars.
York as being really bad
No,
on cars,
Philly's
but my
worse.
wife's from Philly, and
Philly's
New York,
actually
the
worse.
roads eventually get repaved. In Philly,
No,
Yeah.
Ben Franklin drove on these bricks actually.
So, all right. So we have your early car guy
Yeah.
history, but you subsequently have driven obviously hundreds, probably thousands of cars.
Yeah, probably thousands. Yeah.
What's the notable highlight or lowlights of vehicles you've owned?
Oh.
Not just yeah.
oh,
I mean, the clear low light was the H1 Hummer, which is one of the worst.
when did you have
that?
that
2005
in New York? Yeah,
in Manhattan. I was living in Manhattan.
I mean that's a way to get around the potholes.
it was where
Do you have the wagon or like
it was a H1 wagon,
my
and I really wanted to be somebody that I wasn't.
right.
I wanted to be like a Goomba tough guy.
Is this when you were a bouncer?
I was working at Gotham Dream Cars. I was a bouncer later when I had no money. When my TV show was in the toilet. No, yeah, the Hummer H1 was an easy low light. That was the worst
Those
car
are
I've ever had.
supreme- Extremely
Did you know it
uncomfortable.
at the time, or is this something that you had to sort of figure out
I
as
learned
you
it
drove
very quickly. For the first 3 weeks, it was the greatest thing ever. And then it went downhill really fast.
I mean, but that's a secret only you had because everybody must have loved it, right? Was it black?
It was black.
Yeah. And people were like,
my friends loved it.
oh, yeah.
And a lot of people in my neighborhood did not like it in New York City. People spit on it.
Where
it's
did
loud?
you park it?
Sometimes
it's
on the
big.
street in
Yeah.
New York City, and I had a garage space that in 2005 was $1,200 a month.
Oh, my God.
You could have a nice new car for
It was
$1,200
the
a month. Yeah.
dumbest.
So,
Yeah.
so people
Okay.
who are thinking of like the comers that came after, this is not that. This is the
This is
OG.
the Schwarzenegger.
This is the
Yeah.
Schwarzenegger
This is
H1. This is the
Schwarzkopf. This is-
HMMV ex-military vehicle.
This is Desert
was
Storm
bad.
1.
It was
Right.
bad. Spirit Airlines saw the seats and was like, guys, write this down.
Well, this is what people don't understand about that vehicle. Like the reason why it's an ex-military, the reason why it was a military vehicle is that like the entire drivetrain is
Yeah.
up in the car. So there's
Yeah.
a massive tunnel.
It's hysterical.
The passenger on the front passenger, the passengers on the right side of the vehicle, and the driver and the rear passenger, they're separated by about 3.5 feet.
You
Of
could
transmission.
barely
Touch
touch
them.
each other's
Yeah,
heads.
no, but literally the transmission is next to you,
Yeah.
and the engine is in
The
front of your
engine, too.
chest.
It's a mid-engine vehicle.
Yeah, yeah,
Front
it's
mid.
more in front of your chest.
And it's
but
and
yeah,
it's
yeah.
and
But
it's not
between-
just it's not just a
between the
drive
axles.
shaft because it's
No.
a super four-wheel drive like badass off-road
Well, it has
vehicle.
portal axles. I
Right.
mean, it's really
16 inches of ground clearance.
I know.
My Rivian only has 15.
It was so dumb, and so that was
That's
the
awesome.
low light. Highlight. I had a John Cooper. I traded it for a John Cooper Works Mini.
Wow.
Which really went the
First
other
gen.
way. The
Right.
first gen.
First gen was so good.
R53.
So
Oh
good.
my god.
Yeah.
The best. It was.
don't drive the new
went-
one.
It was
Yeah.
awesome.
We could get a whole episode on what happened to Mini. But
Oh my
anyways,
god, the R53 John
Yeah.
Cooper Works Mini was amazing.
That's a Frank
Frank Stevenson.
Frank Stevenson design.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. And I had I spent my bar mitzvah money, which I couldn't touch until I was 18. There's a story I tell about this, and it's too long for this show. But bottom line is, I spent it on a Corvette. Yeah, when I turned 18.
New Corvette?
Yeah, C5,
Whoa.
98 C5.
oh, was that the one that you eventually brought to LA?
Yeah, yeah,
Oh, I
you've
saw
probably
it. Yeah,
seen
I've
it.
seen
Yeah,
that
the red
car.
one.
Yeah, yeah. The
I had that-
4 golf bags.
I had that car for like 18 years. I had it for
Yeah.
a very long time.
Yeah.
And so that was a highlight. Corvette.
Man, you had a good bar mitzvah.
Dude, I'm telling you, it was heavy hitting that one.
That's pretty good.
I went
That's
to a
pretty good.
lot of really crazy ones too. I
I'm
went
sure
to
you
like
did. Yeah, yeah.
My school was stocked, but when I wanted to be a photographer, before I officially called it quits on that, I people told me, well, you want to make money being a photographer, you got to shoot some weddings and some bar mitzvahs. I shot one bar mitzvah, and it was like legendarily insane. And it just a Rolling Stone article recently just re-mentioned it because seriously,
No, I
because,
believe you. Yeah,
so it was at the Rainbow Room in New York City,
Okay.
which is at the top of Rockefeller Center, revolving restaurant. It's like the who's who, hoity-toity, whatever. Stevie Nicks, Tom Petty, Steven Tyler, and Joe Perry, and 50 Cent all performed at this bar mitzvah.
What year was this?
2005.
Wow.
And in case you're wondering,
Yeah.
50 Cent will sing "Go Shorty, It's Your Bar Mitzvah." We're gonna party like it's your bar mitzvah, and that costs $500,000
Okay.
to get him to
Good
do
to
that.
know. Good
I
to know.
thought they told me at the time because I didn't ask too many questions, but I was like, "Who is this?"
Yeah.
Not 50 Cent. I was
No,
like,
the kid.
Whose
Who's
kid is this?
the little pitcher?
And
yeah.
the story I was told was that it was some record executive that had like called in favors. Turns out later, according to Rolling Stone, it was a Russian arms dealer.
Yeah. No, that's about right. Yeah. So, yeah.
Who's in prison now.
So
the guy's in prison.
We had sort of crazy bar mitzvahs in LA, but the ones in New York were
New
legendary.
York bar mitzvahs
yeah.
were
No,
off
forget about it. Yeah.
But Miami.
Oh,
Miami is
better.
where-
Wait. Long Island or Miami? For crazy.
Manhattan was the craziest I've personally seen, but I've heard about some of the Miami
Because
ones
I've
that
been to
were
ones
wild.
in Long Island, or the people from Long Island
Yeah,
that
yeah.
haven't been in Manhattan, and
Wild.
the metric volume of money spent on a 13-year-old little schmuck is like
Yeah.
is
Do
insane.
that, but do the kids? Do they even appreciate it? They're
No!
rather be
They're-
out- it's
I
really
mean,
it's a
look,
flex for the
I
parents, right?
appreciated the Corvette.
Yeah, I mean, I probably got like 10 grand that I paid off most of my student loan with, so that was,
Oh wow,
that was helpful.
You did good with it. Huh?
I had like 13,000 in
Is there,
student
is there an
loans,
upper
so-
age limit on bar mitzvahs?
No, convert today.
Okay.
No,
so-
not
Yeah.
there isn't.
Yeah,
Have at it.
you got to convert.
Yeah.
I learned how to read some stuff.
Nah, yeah, a little bit, but you
Yeah.
forget.
Okay, so because we're We're running out of time.
No.
That's crazy.
Okay, we're
How
like
long
30
is the
minutes.
show?
It's an hour.
Oh, yeah, okay, cool.
Yeah, we're good.
So the question I've been trying to get to. So we've established you're a performance guy. You love cars.
Yes, all kinds.
Is this future we seem to be rocketing towards? Is it actually inevitable? Is electrification? I feel like is. I'm trying to have second thoughts about autonomous. This is a fairly recent revelation. I'm bummed, as Johnny and I were chatting before you got here, that you actually talked to a guy that we probably need to get on the show here.
Alex?
Yeah.
Yesterday.
Yes.
I did 2 hours with Alex yesterday.
He's
so good at this stuff.
He did his elevator metaphor.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's good.
The
elevator thing is good.
It'll be on another upcoming episode.
The elevator thing, the business model of elevators does work.
Yeah.
The more I talk to people in the industry, of the AV industry, the autonomous research industry, the more I think that we will see commercial AVs on some level, starting with taxis, buses, and shuttles, probably in our lifetime.
Long haul trucking.
No, not necessarily.
Really?
I mean, trucking is an interesting one because you do need a human to do everything else with the truck besides
That's that last
drive.
mile part of it.
Well, you got to load, unload.
Yeah.
All kinds of stuff you got to do with a truck.
But the driver doesn't do that.
What we
normally.
might see is a two mode where where the driver can sleep and cover more miles, and then also do some miles, the more technical stuff by themselves, or while driving. Taxis, ride share, I think is likely in our lifetimes with commercially owned fleet vehicles. EVs, I have an EV. I like it very much.
What do you have?
I have a Mach-E.
Which one?
Long range rear wheel drive premium.
Now,
Which I think is the real sweet spot.
I agree with that. Although I like the long range all wheel drive, but that's neither here nor there. As a former Mustang owner, how could you?
I don't use the word Mustang.
You just
to
say
describe
Mach-E.
it ever.
Yeah.
I won't say Mustang.
Okay.
If I could get it without the horse on the front,
So it's not. So you're saying the Ford Mustang Mach-E is not? It's a Ford.
It's a Ford.
It's a Mach-E.
Yeah.
It's not a Mustang.
Yeah, I agree with that statement. But I understand why they've
doing
done
it.
what they've
yeah,
done.
I
Very
totally
smart.
get why they did
I
it.
get
Yeah,
it, but
yeah,
I'm not buying it.
Right.
Take my money, but
Right.
you cannot pay me to call that thing a Mustang.
Okay, fair.
Okay.
But I do like electric cars, not because I'm saving the planet, but because I find that in a city like LA with a lot of stop and go and traffic and turn the car off, turn the car on, blah blah blah, I think it's just a more pleasant
And you're
experience.
loving it now with the gas prices.
You know, I'm in a rarefied air where my gas is tax deductible and I don't get hit by gas prices the way that regular folks do. But yeah, it's nice to not have to fill a car with gas for sure.
Well, it's just to bring everyone else in. Like I bought a Rivian 2 days ago.
Yeah, I love your Rivian.
R1T. Thank
It's
you.
the coolest.
Very into it. But it was like, when I get off the freeway to get to my house, I make a left in front of a Chevron. And I'd gotten rid of my little Ford Fiesta ST, and I'm making the left in premium, which because I tuned my Ford,
Yeah.
it took premium. It was like $7.19
Yeah.
a gallon, and $5 a gallon. It's expensive, but like $7.19, just psychologically.
Dude, I was in Monterey last weekend for Hypercar,
yeah.
and it was at the 8s.
Yeah,
It was in the 8s
that's
for
insane.
free. And I drove a Blackwing.
Yeah,
I put a tank of
6
gas in a
miles a gallon.
Blackwing
Yeah.
every day.
yeah.
Cadillac Blackwing, when you're on it, probably you're getting
8,
9.
9.
Over a week in which I drove to Monterey and back, did sessions at Laguna, and all that, I averaged 12.
Okay.
Which
I mean,
That
I've
includes
been driving a
Cadillac.
T-Rex for
Yeah.
a while, and
the worst.
it's embarrassing. Yeah,
But I like EVs. I don't necessarily think they are inevitable because it requires us. We have to, not just us journalists, but like thousands of people spending billions of dollars to move this industry. It won't just come to us. It's not like that's just gonna happen. It requires it requires government intervention and mandates and public infrastructure, and we're starting to see the mandates, I think, before we're seeing the infrastructure.
Well, what they're doing is they're letting those of us that have more money build our own infrastructure.
Right.
So you got a charger, I'm sure, at your house. You got a charger at the shop.
Yeah.
I'm getting a charger installed in my house tomorrow. I'm already pre-wired for it.
And actually, those level 2 home chargers are like a phenomenal value.
Yeah.
I mean,
I think my truck came with one.
It probably did.
Yeah.
And mine was like, I got mine. Mine's like a Siemens.
Yeah.
I literally got it on Amazon.
Yeah, they're not much money.
$400 for the
Yeah.
charger, and then a couple hundred for the electrician to wire
Right.
it up. And that makes an EV very useful.
But again, we're both homeowners, so we can do that.
Yeah, no, of course.
And I know a lot of people that live in an apartment and go to the people like, hey, I'd love you to install this, and nope, not going to do it.
That's one of the biggest challenges, right? What they call MUDs, multi-unit dwellings in high-density urban areas. How you do this? Like London's kind of figured it out.
And also like power, just generally power. Sure. I mean, I own a commercial building. I'm building another one right now. And so I'm learning what it takes to get power to a building,
right.
And what it would take. I thought in my new building, maybe I can get a DC charger. Maybe I can get a 50 in there. And it was a level 2 was $400. A DC charger was $40,000.
Oh yeah.
And I was like, oh well,
you got a deal.
Scrap that.
We're looking at trying to put like 2 or 3 of them in front of our office.
Yeah.
And I think we got quoted because it's Manhattan Beach.
Yeah.
That's actually also it's Manhattan Beach adjacent. It's like $80,000 to get them put in.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
each,
it's
right?
That's probably for the charger plus the installation.
Yes.
This was just for one. Literally to click to buy.
Right.
Like forget you got to dig up the ground too.
Right.
So we need major invest. We got states that the power goes out if it gets too hot. It's going to be.
Yeah.
We need a major infrastructure. investment
and that's coming. I mean, part of the Build Back Better plan or whatever Biden's plan is.
So.
There's lots of billions for EV infrastructure.
And my hope, like my experience so far, road tripping EVs, is that there's a lot of money being allocated to build chargers, and not nearly enough being allocated to maintain the ones we have.
Yeah,
because I've had a variety of problems from a variety of charge providers on the road. And
real quick, my favorite was I showed up at a charger I was driving an Audi, and it was in the Audi nav screen. I showed up, the cord's gone.
There's copper in that cord.
It's gone. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Well, we were just talking about in the company Slack about Maven. GM had that Maven program, and they had a facility in, I think, North Hollywood, and it had 4 DC, maybe 50 kilowatt fast chargers. And when they pulled the plug on that, they literally pulled the plug on all the chargers. And even though it's like, you could just make these available to the public somehow.
Yeah.
What's going on?
It's really, that part is a challenge. So I think, but I still like my Mach-E, and even when the lease is up, whether I get another Ford or another, like my wife and I will have an EV in our home indefinitely because we really like it, and because for our lifestyle, running locally, it works.
But you still think it's electrification. Let's just call it battery electric vehicles are not like everyone's going to have them in 5-10 years. You're still like,
I don't think it's a guarantee yet, because I'm interested to see, Porsche's talking about synthetic fuels. I think if there is a fuel that is zero or very, very low emissions, and we can continue to have combustion vehicles but that are very clean, I think the rapid refill, the availability of stations all over, I think that system doesn't require humans to change so much. It fits what we've already built.
I don't know, because the other thing I was going to ask you is, the sort of comedy around the title of this program and that's InEVitable.
He's pointing at the inevitable. Yeah.
The sign is that MotorTrend, our team, we don't really have to do anything. All these cars are coming. Like it's not like I told the whole staff, like, hey, go write more EV stories. Every car that's entering the press fleet, they're all either plug-in hybrid or electric now.
I'll give an example. Like, Car and Driver came out with EV of the year, and we talked about it. Like, oh, should we do that? And it's like, well, wait a second. In like 3 years, what a dumb award, because every car will have an EV version.
Right. Yeah.
But then
I like plug-in hybrids a lot too. I had a Volt, and that was the best. That was probably I didn't even want to mention it as a highlight, but just that is probably the best car I've ever had.
Yeah. That was $100,000 or more car that GM sold you for $40,000.
Yeah.
Plus a tax rebate. That was a spaceship.
My lifetime average for my 3-year lease was like over 200 miles per gallon.
Yeah.
I then gave it to my sister, who lived in an apartment and didn't have anywhere to plug it in. and she drove it around as a 50 mile per gallon gasoline car for 3 more years. The versatility of that is unbelievable.
Yeah, no, that was a way ahead of its time.
And if we could have cars that had a small gasoline engine and a small battery together, you'd have a really, really useful vehicle for a lot of people.
I reject the idea that synthetic fuel is any kind of solution, just like hydrogen is. It requires too much. Like, you're gonna have to get stations to adopt synthetic, number one. But and all that aside, the competitive advantage of electrifying all of the products you make leaves internal combustion. And it's a terrible thing to say.
Once the price of silicon once the price of a battery falls.
It's not even that, but
why screw around with valves?
Yes, it's the parts complexity, right? It's like you're literally one order of magnitude fewer parts in an EV. And think of the cost savings. And this is where the thing is, all the big car companies, they have to do it because all these guys in China who don't have a legacy of building internal combustion engines, they're coming and they're going to eat everybody's lunch.
Well, that's I mean, that's like countries that we might call developing that skipped over landlines and went straight to cell phones. So that's a totally valid point. What I read recently said that basically we only have the available resources right now to build like 5% of the batteries and stuff that the manufacturers claim we are going to need in the next few years. So that infrastructure is really going to have to do some very rapid catching up. And I also am concerned about outsourcing our filth.
Oh, that's a big thing.
Building EVs is not nearly as clean of a process as driving
burning
them.
Coal in China to manufacture lithium batteries is a real issue. It is. That's for sure. But it can change. It can change.
Sure, it can. Yeah, it can.
Whereas burning gas
is
is
part
always
of a bigger thing, right? Sure. More walkable cities, bike lanes, public transit, stuff like that.
Then you're starting to make that leap into what AVs could bring. What if what if they were all autonomous and you didn't, and it goes to a shared mobility, you don't own it.
I don't want to live in Demolition Man quite yet.
Right.
I don't want to have to keep my Oldsmobile 442 in an underground bunker.
Right.
Well, let me.
Although I do have 3 seashells in my bathroom. I do.
We talked about this at the last one when we had Randy and Ben Schaefer on from Public Performance, and you had a particular opinion about this, but I want to float it by this guy because I have an update which I'll tell you about. But I think, and this is, again, I don't want you to crib completely from the conversation you had yesterday with Mr. Roy.
That's okay.
But
I'll scoop myself.
I believe when full autonomous is here and it's practically infallible, and humans will absolutely be outlawed. There's no way they're going to let humans on the road alongside vehicles that simply don't crash because humans just present too much of an X factor.
Well, okay.
And then in one generation or 2 generations, people will look back at this period in history like, you guys are who's crazy? They used to let this carbon-based life forms pilot 5,000-pound vehicles and kill people at $1 million a year.
You can ride a horse down the street legally today. They haven't outlawed that. You can drive a Model T down the street legally. They haven't outlawed that.
You can be 18 and buy an AR-15. This country
This country's not outlawing human driving.
Anything. No. Anytime soon.
And also, there's absolutely zero evidence that AVs will be infallible either.
That's a great point.
There's no evidence that AVs will not crash.
So the most interesting, that's a great point.
On. Can I let me take over for a second? You've been going because we got about 15 minutes left.
Let the Jews talk.
So, no. I want you two. I'm glad you guys are finally recording together because, with the exception of Edward Niedermeyer, you're probably the most prominent automotive Elon Musk critic that I know about.
Sure.
And you are as close to a friend of Elon as. Except I know his best friend.
But I'm not a homer.
No. But I, Matt and I got into this legendary, memorialized in art form argument. I was saying that the cars were okay. He's kind of a libertarian butthead who's now turned into just a right-wing troll, for lack of a better term. But I'd like you guys to discuss Mr. Musk, and I'll just kind of eat my popcorn. Yeah, this is a big topic now.
It's all.
And by the way, yesterday he said he'd like to see Ron DeSantis become president of the United States. This is a guy who sells electric vehicles for.
This morning I woke up and his Twitter said he voted, because I guess he's a resident of Texas now. He voted this is the first time he's ever voted for a Republican, and it was a local.
Yeah, what's her face?
Yeah.
Myra special election. But he said, much more importantly, is that
QAnon.
She is QAnon. Yeah. But more importantly, he thinks DeSantis is like a good. Yeah.
I mean, look, my biggest problem with him and that company is that they literally bank the benefits while outsourcing all the risk.
Explain that.
Smart businessman.
Explain that.
Meaning they.
By the way, that was Trump's defense for not paying taxes.
They imply their cars will be able to drive themselves. They can't.
Right.
They want you to think they can in subtle and not so subtle ways by using terms like full self-driving with this dumb yoke thing, and
autopilot.
And by autopilot, full self-driving, by every year saying it's right around the corner, by positioning it as on that dumb painted black video, by saying the driver is only there because the government says it has to be. And then when those cars get into a crash, it's your fault.
Right.
Real AV research companies that actually are doing research and taking it seriously, like Cruise, Waymo, Argo, etc., they have scientific protocols for testing on public roads.
Sure. It's
engineers in the car that are qualified to not only take over, that are paid to do nothing but pay attention. And even they're infallible, but they're covered by corporate liability insurance. They're not,
So you have a problem with him beta testing in the real world, basically. That among many things.
Yes,
sure.
That's my biggest problem.
Okay.
And selling a product and implying it can do things that it absolutely cannot do and will never be able to do.
And I understand
Which
all that.
should be illegal.
Should be illegal.
That really,
I understand all that. I respect all that.
And double speaking, to the DMV saying one thing and to
you should be on our company Slack thread because
saying the other thing.
Well, the other thing was the one that I'm like, whoa, was I think yesterday they came out and said that like it looks as if the second before a crash, autopilot's maybe we don't know this, but maybe intentionally turning off to try and kick the liability totally to the driver.
So the way they publicly said it is forget that. That's like extremely shady.
Yeah.
But the way they publicly said it is if you're using autopilot or FSD and the car crashes, it's your fault because you should have been paying attention and taken over.
Right.
If the car is headed for a crash, if a crash is inevitable, you might say, and you try to avoid that crash by wrestling control, but you crash anyway, it's your fault because you were driving.
And so the point I've been making lately to people is that
I thought you wanted me to talk.
We'll get to you. You've had enough. Is that Mercedes? Because I think that we're going to see level 3 autonomy by the end of the year. Now, the way the Mercedes is doing it, it's totally geofenced. It works on freeways, in daylight, in clear weather, where they get a current 3D map downloaded to show that the road's in the condition it was the day before. And that switches the liability. That's really the difference between level 2 and level 3.
Yeah.
The liability switches to Mercedes. So in the event of a crash, even if the vehicle's trying to get you to take over and you've fallen asleep or had a heart attack or whatever, it's not your fault because at level 3, you assume liability.
That's a big step.
Huge
That's a very big step.
Huge step. It's legal in Germany now. It's going to be legal in California, they think, by December of 22. And
seems interesting.
What?
Yeah.
So,
but real quick, but like Tesla is, they've never even mentioned level 3.
No.
They never mentioned Tesla taking over liability because why would they?
So, a couple thoughts. So, firstly, I get it. I understand. These are all fairly, in my mind, these are problems that will eventually get figured out by Elon and other smart people. In general.
What do you mean? Eventually get? It seems like they're making a lot of money by intentionally.
Well, I'm not trying to be an apologist at all for whatever he's doing, but I look at big companies. I look at how quickly they can move and change things, and I respect the fact that he's doing this with a car company. He's doing it with a rocket company. He's doing it with a satellite company. Like that to me is unheard of, very impressive. We lambast big car companies for like not moving quickly enough, and this guy is he's
well, but he's also doing it by like just stomping all over regulations and basically daring people to stop him, and he's really showing that they can't, that the agencies really have no
pretty
teeth.
Toothless.
Yeah,
I think that's probably a net positive.
NHTSA basically said, like, you need to give us all this information about these crashes, and he basically said,
right,
which that's not how that's supposed to work.
Right.
So, like, I liked everything Tesla did from 2012 to 2014. Like, the Model S, like, nice car, revolutionary, good looking, fast, good range. You know,
it was
like influential for sure. Right. But the fact is, to me, he had a smash hit first album and no follow up.
Right.
Like there's the Model 3 and Model Y are just repackaged Model S's. There's nothing those cars do that a Model S won't do. There's no new technology in those that is unavailable in an S.
The pulling the cost out of it, making it more affordable,
making it cheaper.
Model 3 is going to be California. I think if it's not already, it's California's best-selling vehicle.
That's fine. That's fine. But there's nothing new in it that the S doesn't have, and so all they've got to say that they are better than everybody else is this autonomy thing, which is a lie. It's built on a lie. The cars cannot do the.
We can talk about autonomy in a second because I have some I have a perspective on that. The thing I will say is that you talk about disruption, right? Silicon Valley popular term. He is 100% disrupting automotive. And people, it's that story is only starting to reveal itself. Like how we gave Tesla Model S car of the year in 2013. We gave it to them as an EV. What's actually becoming clear is that electrification, that's great. That's the powertrain. The fact that they did the software all on their own and they're able to continuously update their vehicles and make them better. I mean, that Model S that was unique. 10 years.
Yeah, but that was unique 8-9 years ago.
What have you done for me lately?
Now everybody.
Nobody has caught up to them on that. On SDV. Nobody has caught up to them on software, on defining the vehicle via software. They're trying like hell right now. That's this big realization that everybody's, and I'm going to keep harping on this, and it's probably a different podcast, to be honest. But this thing, the fact that you can buy a Tesla and you can cheap out and you get the low, whatever, but you can go into the app, and if you do the over-the-air update and you pay $2,500, and the next day your car is 2.5 seconds faster. Nobody else is even close to that right now.
Well, they could do that, though.
No, they can't. They cannot. GM,
you sold
Toyota.
A car with upgraded hardware and downgraded software, you could do that.
But nobody is able to do it this moment.
Well, but my Ford updates
They can't add fart machine. They can't add.
Where would we be without a fart machine?
Well, but hang on. They can do. I mean,
my Ford has had features. My Ford had Blue Cruise added last week.
Yeah,
I did not. Yeah. It was not there when I bought the car. Did an over-the-air update, and now it has Blue Cruise.
I mean, we saw that like with our long-term Defender. It had wired Apple CarPlay, and then there was an update, and now it has wireless.
Yeah. Other companies can do it.
Tesla might be able to do more
more significant. That's all I'm saying. Yeah. So Lucid, some of the newer guys. This is where again,
Lucid will be able to. The Lucid guys developed the Model S.
The Lucid story is their door handles work where. If you have the key in your pocket or your mobile phone's next to it, you pull once and the door's locked, it won't open. The second pull, it opens. They got a bunch of customer feedback that they hated that, so they fixed it in an over-the-air update, which is a bit of a game changer. Yep. A lot of car companies can do that because there's a hardware aspect to that.
Sure.
Okay, so you guys want to disagree on the impact? It's fine. I can talk about
No, I mean, historically, Tesla's going to be it's a huge part of the automotive history of the world. I have no question about that.
Look at how far Jim Farley, for instance, is getting after that Elon Musk model since taking over. Like he's gotten on Twitter in a Twitter big way.
The things that Elon has done well,
right,
and tried to copy them or improve on them, and he's not picked up some of the things that Elon Musk has done.
He's all over Twitter. He said just recently in an article sent all around our office how Ford does not want to advertise anymore. They want to sell vehicles the way Tesla does, based on essentially Twitter, word of mouth, or whatever you call it.
Tesla remember when Tesla gave roadsters to people for selling their cars, and where are those roadsters? Now you've got people who were promised cars that can't collect on that. So they've not only done influencer marketing, that's another doublespeak. They claim to not do marketing. They get the mileage out of that. Oh, we don't buy ads. Our cars are so good.
Well, they don't buy ads.
But they launch cars into fucking space
on their own, on their own rocket. Like they need to
pay. It's not
their
own rocket. It's a separate company. It wasn't a Tesla rocket. That's a SpaceX rocket. Let's at least tell the truth. That's a SpaceX rocket. Okay. They then have influencer referral codes. Right, so those that's marketing done for them that, in theory, have value that you can earn a very expensive car. So they are paying somebody,
right,
to do market. It's not like they're never paying anybody to spread the word.
They don't do car commercials. They don't take the ads in magazines or on websites or whatever. That was
fine. So that's a novel thing to do, and it's an interesting way to market your car, but. What's really important is that we are honest about what it is and what it is not.
Sure.
They are not doing advertising. They're just not doing traditional ad buys.
And the other thing is, they got rid of their communication department, which, you can snicker at that. But there's no credibility left. Like, I put a deposit down on a Cybertruck because I was like, I like pickup trucks. I don't necessarily like big American pickup trucks. Especially I live in LA, and I've wanted, I bought one the other day, but I put a deposit down on the Cybertruck. And then, 2 years later, I put a deposit down on a Rivian early enough that I got to get the low price, not the 20% higher price. And I got the Rivian. So now I got to, cancel my Cybertruck deposit.
Oh, hang on.
And there's still no Cybertruck. And they announced
that prototype they're parading around looks unbelievably janky.
Yeah. And there's also that. But there's no way to be like, hey, and also, they took... In 2017, they took $250,000 deposits for the Roadster, and
full price.
So that's money that is.
I guess I don't understand where I appreciate that you guys are mad on behalf of like you have one, but you don't have any Tesla reservations, or you're not.
No.
Right.
I mean, it was a cheap reservation, but I'm just saying like, there's no accountability. They can just say stuff.
Yeah.
But that's on the people that are there, and there are certainly lots of people who are upset because they're reservation holders, but it's like you play the game, those are the rules. Like this is not new. This is not new information. So why are we upset about it?
What do you?
Well, I'm upset
where
because
else can you pay full price for a car before the car is? Who takes people's money like that?
Yeah, I mean, you could say Mercedes did that with the Project One. They took $675,000 deposits in 2017 in the cars. Now you can't even buy them in the U.S. Stuff like that. But that's like a tiny little thing.
That's not a mass-produced
This is like they got millions of $100 reservations for the Cybertruck.
Yeah, and full price $250,000 for these Founders Edition.
That's not sitting
Roadsters.
in an interest-earning account.
Yeah,
Tesla just spent it.
Yeah, I don't think it's ethical to take people's money for a product you're nowhere near delivering.
Yeah, and remember, he said the Cybertruck is a year out. The Roadster is a year away.
Yeah.
And again, there's no communication, so there's no way to even like question him on this unless you get, win the Twitter lotto and he, insults you back on Twitter.
And if you want to play, you can go ahead and play buyer beware if that's what you want to do, but I don't think that's an ethical way to do business. And I certainly don't think that's how a company should end up being the most valuable car company in the world by doing stuff like that. That's super
That's a fair
sketchy.
point. Fair point. But I want to go back to just this AV conversation because I think what's really interesting about what you guys are talking about, and I agree. Look, the promises of full self-driving, autopilot, poor names.
Well, but also sold for $10,000.
Sure, never realized.
That's some Tucker level.
Yeah.
But you very quickly pointed out a bunch of other companies like Argo AI, Cruise, Waymo. These guys are all doing autonomous. Trying to get to full autonomous. Mm-hmm. The underlying decision, though, that those companies made and what Tesla did and what Cadillac Super Cruise did, and this is all recent information for me because I just read this. There's a fantastic book. I keep telling the staff that they need to read it. So have you read it? Autonomy by Larry Burns.
No, but I will.
Former senior vice president, corporate vice president of research at General Motors. He was there from like I think the late 70s all the way to the 2008 when we basically had to leave. He helped GM invent the skateboard chassis, like that foundational stuff, right? He was subsequently an advisor for Google Chauffeur, worked with Sebastian Thrun, all those guys. And the core decision they made, it's all the stuff we just talked about. They realized very early on, the Tesla system is essentially highway driving assist on steroids.
Yeah.
That's not the way to go. And the key decision that both Anthony Lewandowski, who was formerly at Waymo and then went to Uber, and the whole Google team made was that you can't ever rely on humans to be the fallback, because humans, when you tell them, it's like it's totally
humans are great at driving and bad at being the last minute resort.
Right.
Yeah.
Through all the research, when they put the human watchers in the car, they would fall asleep.
Yeah, they get distracted. It
was like a 12-second, like an average, something like a 12-second.
You got porn on your phone now.
Yeah,
Like,
no.
Right.
Well, that's why Alex talks about a lot, and I agree with him, the idea of parallel autonomy rather than series autonomy.
Right.
With parallel autonomy, you drive the car, but the systems are watching, and your car basically becomes uncrashable.
Right.
But the problem is, that's not a very good party trick, is it?
Right.
Look, ma, no hands is a way better party
sticking your
trick.
hands out the sunroof.
And most people would argue that that's not autonomous.
And it's not autonomous.
It's not.
It's not.
It's not.
But people want to live in science fiction. They want to be in the future. And that's why Elon Musk selling that vision is so successful, because he has convinced people, because the car looks like it's driving.
Right.
It looks like it. If you let it go for 30 seconds on the freeway.
Yeah, it crashes. Yeah.
You know.
I mean, how many times, and look, we don't even really get Tesla press cars anymore, so it's been a while since I've driven one.
Spike can tell you how to get one.
Yeah, exactly. But I have had so many times, and it's not just Tesla, but all level 2 systems.
Yeah, they all kind of suck.
Randomly turn off for no reason.
Yeah,
middle of a corner, give it up.
But at least like with Blue Cruise and Super Cruise, the ones from the legacy OEMs,
they're safe.
They're at least smart enough to geofence them.
Yes.
They say it's divided highways, it's daylight, it's single direction travel.
And the Mercedes one you got to check out, because it's all that, but the computer, the Mercedes takes over the liability. It's the best way to put it.
Yeah.
And so you can sit there and watch TV. Now, when it's time for you to take over, it yanks your seatbelt. It moves the seat. It honks the horn. It blinks at you. It wiggles. It does everything in the world. Plays with the pedals, trying to wake you up.
But isn't the thesis, that fundamental thesis is still flawed?
Why?
Like take over.
But
which is what Argo and Waymo and these guys are going after the other.
They're going around it. They're going all the way to level 5.
But hang on. Yeah, that's true. The Mercedes, if you don't take over, it still maintains the liability. Meaning, if you never make any input to try and take control of the car,
doesn't it pull over and come to a stop?
It just comes to a stop in the lane, puts on the hazards, and slowly stops as if the car broke down. That's what it does.
That's just I
that's
understand.
a good system.
I think the way that Argo and Waymo and Cruise are doing it is great for a ride share application, and less great for a personally owned AV application. And that's where Alex's elevator thesis comes in. Elevators were invented in the 1800s.
Real quick, this is when I said we got to have Alex on. At Matt's birthday party, he told me this.
The elevator model is really good. Elevators were invented in the 1800s, but most people still don't have elevators in their homes. You find elevators in commercial buildings with commercial operators. They're really reliable. They can
inspected constantly.
They're inspected constantly. You could do all kinds of stuff with them, like the most advanced ones can recognize via your phone what floor you want to go to when you walk up to them, and that kind of stuff. But you still
I get what he's
them.
saying, but they're not in most people's homes, because most people's homes don't require an elevator.
No, but I mean
stairs are just fine, and they're crazy expensive.
Right.
But I have a cousin with an elevator.
That I know some people with elevators too, but the implication is to have all the suites, the LiDAR, the radar, the cameras, and all the stuff that you need may not, in any kind of reasonable time period, come down to the point where it makes sense for a personally owned car. But when you have a commercially operated car, it may be more financially viable to have those types of systems.
Yeah.
And that's why you can do a level 5.
Right. Which is why my thought, well, yes. And this is like a 3-hour conversation about when
I like it.
When Argo and Cruise and Waymo and all these autonomous companies, they're going after a totally different segment, which is, as you said, rideshare. Again, this autonomy book just covers all this stuff. This guy Larry Burns it's not a car guy. He's a mobility guy. He is a PhD, and he's very clear where his passions are. And it's like when you fundamentally change transportation, and it becomes ownership goes away, and these things can be hailed. I mean, he's talking about how 15% of the vehicles we have on the road today would be suitable for covering everybody's needs, just based on the utilization.
Yeah, I mean, that's going to be real tough in America. I mean, just look at what happened in 2020. I mean, I didn't want to get in an Uber.
Right,
I don't want to. I didn't want to share things for a long time.
I always
what if the car picks you up and that's it? There's nobody. There's no COVID. There's no driver.
But I've heard stuff like that too. It also like I have enough T-shirts to clothe, like 50 people or whatever. You know what I mean? Like it's like humans in a capitalist society, we love owning stuff.
Yeah,
it's just that idea of 50% of the cars that's a central planning directive. Yeah. Like your car, it's not you're not driving it right now. We're going to put it to use.
Yeah,
and that's just not how we.
I think that in very dense areas. Manhattan, Miami Beach.
Sure.
But
that's where speed limit is 25 miles throughout.
I know. Owning a car in Manhattan, I've been there. It sucks, and if I was living in Manhattan, I'd rather not.
But how many people in Manhattan own cars? Like everyone has a car, and they all. Oh God, I have to pay $1,200 a month to park this thing. I go to the Hamptons once a season, but I'm glad I have it when I need it.
In my own defense, I lived in Manhattan and worked in New Jersey, and so insane. I did kind of need it.
Yeah.
But I didn't need a Hummer. But
I lived in San Francisco and I worked in San Jose, and I needed a car, which I paid $250 a month in parking tickets.
I own 7 cars, and I take Ubers. I don't, what I mean? There are specific instances for which ride sharing does work for me.
Just to put a pin in it for those who are listening, because Matt's very few people own 7 cars or have had the number of vehicles he's owned in his lifetime. If you just had one car, just think about your one car that you own and the amount of time you actually spend driving it versus how much time it spent sitting in your garage or parked along your street not being used. Like that's the opportunity that presents itself.
But why does it have to be used? Like think about all the watches you own or all the shoes you own, and you're not walking in them right now?
Not everyone thinks like this, but I don't care if my car is not being used. I don't want a bunch of randoms in my car.
Only that, I don't want somebody else worrying about my car not being used or my whatever I own. No, I own it. That's
mine.
Let's
go back to having 7. I mean, just the idea of having a place for 7 cars you need to park.
I can think of one. West Side Collector Car Store.
So I was
Playa Vista.
I was wondering why we didn't talk.
WCCS.com. Call me.
I was going to give you an opportunity to talk about that.
That's maybe the best plug ever.
Yeah. I was wondering why you were sort of dancing around this other thing that you do, and we could have spent some time talking about that as well.
Some cars are special. Some cars deserve to be kept.
Sure. Okay. Well, let's.
I don't have 7 Mach-E's.
Right.
Yeah. I don't have 7 regular cars.
Right.
So
you do have that sweet Countach.
WCCS, West Side Collector Car Storage. This is your side hustle, probably now main hustle.
50% hustle.
Okay, 50% hustle. It's a business. Other people are copying it. It's a big, or are you copying somebody else?
I didn't invent it. I just did it better.
Right. So imagine a big, luxuriously, nicely painted warehouse with vehicle lifts. If you own a nice car.
Hang on. With quad stackers
rated to a seismic 12.0 earthquake over a basement, which no one's ever done before.
So we're in Los Angeles. It's an expensive place to live. Certain parts, it's an expensive place to park. Mm-hmm. Matt has a solution for people who want to pay a fee that they can park their weekend car, their Porsche, their Ferrari, whatever. Stack it all up there. You also have some nice accoutrement.
Yeah, we
in
do
the place.
detailing and all that kind of stuff. Yeah,
Right, but like,
But
Do you do wheel repair?
We can.
Oh.
There's at where I live by the beach, it's very dense, and getting space is very hard, and so I have a very dense but high-end storage facility for collector cars and special cars, and folks either who live by me or folks who live out of town and want to have a car in LA, so they're not renting a car. And it's not. I didn't come here to plug that. I didn't even know we were talking about it. But I think that places like this, could be the future for people who want to live in dense urban area, as I do, and also have somewhere safe to keep their car when their home doesn't provide it. Every one parking space for me is 5.
Yep.
Because we're 1 down and 4 up.
Yep.
So a 10 by 20 square.
1 on the ground, 4 stacked on basically a metal lattice.
Yeah.
With
Yeah.
elevator
1 on the
mechanism.
basement and then 4 stacked on the ground. Yeah.
Okay.
So it's pretty dense. We've got 130 cars in 11,000 square feet. I'm building another one right now in Gardena. And so, I think for people who want to live in dense areas like this and collect cars, like this is an option.
In the future, has this become like this is the common analogy about when we talk about autonomous, like, oh, there'll always be cars and you still be able to drive, but only when you want to drive something fun. It's like horse ownership. Is this
kind of?
This is kind of like
Jay Leno uses that analogy a lot,
Yeah.
and I don't entirely disagree. I think that there might be places where, if you ask me, I think maybe there's places where cars are banned entirely, except for certain hours of the day for delivery and stuff. I recently vacationed in Amsterdam, and cars are banned in the Centrum for certain hours, and it was delightful. I really thought it was great.
Yep.
In Paris, this is happening.
They've
London,
done that even in
yeah.
Manhattan.
In Manhattan,
certain streets, they just yank
and
the cars
I'm
up.
personally okay with that. I think
Totally.
it's great.
You don't need to drive everywhere.
No.
The wildest thing to think about is that Google AV car that they built, the Firefly, which was specifically built to be a low-speed, steering wheel-less little pod.
Mm-hmm.
The top speed for and they built it that size for a loophole in the DOT and NHTSA framework where it was not considered a passenger
It was
car.
like a golf cart.
Yeah,
kind of thing,
essentially.
right? Yeah.
That car could run through all of Manhattan because Manhattan speed limit is 25 miles an hour.
Well,
You imagine that. Imagine the size, this little two-pod, soft front nose and running around and taking you anywhere you wanted to go.
So Brian Selesky, who's now the head of Argo, was one of the chief architects.
He's
of
a
that
software
Google
guy
car.
for Google Firefly.
I just had dinner with that guy. Very, very interesting guy.
Yes.
But in Manhattan Beach and in Venice, where I live, a lot of people are driving golf carts.
Oh yeah.
There's a guy who's got
Gem.
the gem, but there's a guy who's got a vintage one with like a Rolls Royce schnoz on it.
Oh yeah, like Caddyshack.
It's awesome.
Caddyshack too. Yeah.
I did want to end because I don't care if we go a little bit over because I think this is a fun one. I pitched this to our staff. So we're talking about this future where enthusiast cars, we think will still be able to drive them alongside the baddest ass, completely infallible AVs, let's hope, right? I think motorcycles are totally screwed. I think motorcycles go completely away because
That's interesting.
because nobody's coming up with autonomous motorcycles because the whole point,
want that.
right? The whole point of a
I
motorcycle,
ride motorcycles, and I tell you, I wouldn't want that.
right? The whole point is driving it,
Have
but
you
also
seen the latest greatest motorcycles have radar cruise control?
right.
Yeah.
All
The new Harley Pan America's got it. The Ducati Multistrada's got radar cruise control, which is very, very interesting.
Motorcycles, just real quick, I thought about that when I saw you post that. It's like somebody, Matt, criticized you. They're like, this guy's talking about there's been 5 deaths related to Tesla, and yet he rides around on a motor scooter. And if you get in any kind of accident on a motorcycle, like dead meat, I was thinking about that, and I was thinking about what Ed said about like they're screwed in our EV or autonomous future. They're just sort of this weird legacy loophole where there's just not enough to really care.
Yeah,
and
motorcycles.
they don't kill anybody else.
I disagree with Ed. I think motorcycles will probably be fine. I'm very pro motorcycle. I have a Vespa that I ride around LA because you can lane split legally and traffic sucks here and I love my Vespa.
I thought you said you're pro motorcycle.
Oh. I have a couple other. I just bought a monkey. I bought a Honda monkey
really?
like 2 days ago.
Oh,
yeah,
wow.
I'm really excited about it. I think motorcycles will fall into the same category as enthusiast sports cars.
Yeah.
And I think they'll probably be exempt from a lot of that kind of stuff.
I hung out with. So you said your piece.
Yeah.
I hung out with the man, the myth, the legend, Ralph Gilles, last couple of days. He's the head of design for Stellantis. Or
But
Chrysler.
he's a little more than that.
He's a little more. He's
a VP.
He's a genuine rock star. He's
Yeah.
what he's told me. He's had 9 CEOs.
I was going to
in
say
his
he's a
time.
future CEO.
He was on. Well, he was head of SRT brand.
Yeah, but I mean, he's
head
a
of
future
Dodge.
Stellantis CEO.
Right.
Maybe.
Great guy.
He's not European, but maybe.
He was telling me all about all the EVs he's designing and how much of the portfolio at Stellantis he's doing and all that stuff. And I pitched him this motorcycle. I think motorcycles go away. Like, it has to, right? They're so dangerous. Like, if you think cars are dangerous, like motorcycles are just like
Motorcycles
off the charts.
don't kill others. I
yeah,
think
they're
is a
not
key
dangerous
thing.
to others. Yeah, it's
just-
very rare
it's
that
a suicide
you hit
machine.
somebody with a motorcycle and kill them.
Sure.
Right.
Very rare.
Yeah.
Good, fair point. He came back and very quickly, I might say, he was like, thought about it, said, no. He's like, what's going to happen? If AVs, if autonomous vehicles are that infallible, if they're 100% safe, doesn't matter what.
What does motorcycles have to worry about?
Exactly. Doesn't matter what you drive. I was like,
If you told your man that he wasn't to be touched, then why did he have to be transferred off the base?
There we go. That's a Few Good Men.
A Few Good Men
reference.
Santiago wasn't to be touched. I forgot his name in the middle of the joke.
Who ordered the code red?
Yeah. Yeah.
You want the truth?
I've seen, as when you're riding a motorcycle around the city, you do see, every little movement of a car, every person on their phone,
And everybody's on their phone.
I know I wear all my gear. Let's just say when I'm on a bike, I know the risks and I try to mitigate them wherever I can. I think, like Johnny said, it's a small enough niche that it probably will continue to be mostly exempt from all these types of regulations. I mean, you don't have to smog a bike. You know, all you have to do is have a VIN number.
It's this weird. Motorcycles have this strange parallel evolution.
Yeah.
Like as the car engines got bigger and more complex and turbochargers and more bike engines and everything just shrank.
Yeah.
And if you ever
In size, but not power. Come on.
No.
in
I just
size.
mean in size. Whereas car engines, we've settled on a 2-liter 4-cylinder, but the plumbing and the cooling that is required to, they're big and heavy. And if you ever show I've seen this happen a few times, like when a motorcycle mechanic gets together with a car mechanic, it's literally like just parallel species.
Yeah.
Wait, that's your flywheel?
Yeah.
It's the size of a espresso coaster.
I own a very interesting motorcycle. I own a 1983 Honda CX500 Turbo, which is the first ever production turbocharged motorcycle. Also, the first one with first bike to ever have an ECU.
Oh, no
kidding.
kidding.
Really
83?
83. The bike came out in 80, but mine is in 83.
Because I rode CX the little CRs. I rode CRs, little 50s and 60s.
It's a really interesting bike, and it's got stuff that cars have now.
Does that have crazy turbo lag?
Yeah, real zingy. Real zingy, but it only makes 86 horsepower, so you'll be fine.
But it's still got a turbo.
Yeah, that's cool. It says turbo all over it. So 80s.
Ooh. Only because we'll probably have to end it after this one, but I'll let you ask a question. This is totally not related to anything we just talked about.
Okay.
But we are still really trying to get Dr. Missy Cummings onto this show.
She killed on my show.
I know. I watched the episode, and I also, at your recommendation, I read her paper, and then I read her book. That she published in 1999 called Hornet's Nest about her time as an F-18 pilot, which is, by the way...
Is it a cool book? I didn't read that.
It's available free as a PDF, which is hilarious, because it's out of print. I was like, how do I get this thing? I found it on her university's, the Duke's, I think it's on Duke's website. She was a Duke professor. I downloaded it. It's hilarious, because when you download a PDF and read it on a Kindle, you can't change the font size. So I was like, my wife's like, how are you reading that? I'm like, this is the only way I can read it.
You got a magnifying glass up to the Kindle.
It outlines her. She's one of the. Why are we talking about her? She is the head of safety for NHTSA, the National Highway Transportation Safety Administration. She's a Duke. She was a Duke professor of robotics.
But also the Musk cult went after her. The Tesla cult.
Yeah.
She's been very
Savaged
vocal.
her.
Yeah.
But you talked to her before the NHTSA appointment, right?
Yes, it was a couple months.
Yeah,
before.
because we can't
Now
talk.
you can't. Yeah,
we can't talk.
I asked her to come back, and she said because of her job, she can't really do shows
baloney.
anymore.
And you know what? The crazy part was. So I was going to ask you for tips on how to get around, but I can't.
It's because of her gig. She can't do it right now. I got it before, and I met her through Alex, and she was a really interesting guest, and
she has seen some stuff.
Yeah, and she's been very critical of. She's a big proponent of the words matter. You know, when you're describing what what autonomy and driver assistance and ADAS and what those things can do and can't do, and she's just a proponent of describing this stuff accurately, and those who describe it inaccurately are doing a disservice to the entire industry.
And that's exactly right. If you poison the well, it's like, well, wait a second. My friend was killed in a full self-driving car.
Yeah.
I don't believe in it. It's like, well, wait a second. That wasn't full self-driving.
Yeah.
I get it. The last thing I'll say on that is, what an opportunity then is Elon creating for everybody else in the marketplace who is now like trying like hell to like knock his vehicles and his autonomous systems off.
If Rivian could get their production up,
exactly.
There's no reason to buy a Cybertruck unless you need the wedge styling.
The Rivian is, I think, the best built of those new crop of
It's just such
cars.
crazy thinking. Like my kid who's 5, right? So I showed him the whole thing. So you know what his new thing he came up with? Play hide and seek in the Rivian because there's so many places to hide.
Hopefully, you can't lock yourself.
You can't.
In
There's little. I showed him where all the little
emergency catches,
and they don't even have like handles you pull. They actually have buttons.
It's
the same. It's the same button. So a kid can't get trapped.
Now, as a parent, that's got to scare the crap out of you.
No, not at all.
Have you been in a production Lucid yet?
Oh yeah.
I've only been in the pre-pro car. I was been in a customer car yet.
Fair point.
I haven't been in a customer car. I saw Tony Q, the head of Sony Pictures. I was butcher's last name. I saw his. I didn't go in it.
Yeah.
And then I drove. It was still an engineering car.
Yeah, I want to drive an actual customer car because I had a couple little hiccups with the Golden Goose is the one I drove, the engineering car.
Yeah.
And I did 1,000 miles in it, and I loved it.
Yeah.
But I had a couple things, and they were like, no, the production cars will be different, so I want to get in one of those.
And excuse me, they've already revised the front suspension radically on the Grand Touring compared to you drove a Dream Edition.
I drove a Dream,
yeah. So. And it was great because it was David. I don't know if you met him. David Lickfold.
Yeah.
I drove back to back.
Who's that? Who's David Lickfold?
He's the head of engineering, of chassis and handling.
Yeah. Really interesting guy.
Great. Yeah, I worked at Jaguar for years. But anyway, I drove the Grand Touring back to back with a Dream Edition, and
feel a lot different.
Blew it away. And I love the one that we gave Car of the Year to. But I go, what'd you do? He's like, I rented a GT3 RS. And I drove it for 5 miles.
Yeah, he told me that.
And then I sat on my laptop for 10 minutes and I reprogrammed this. And then I drove the GT3 RS. And then, and I'm like,
good plan.
It shows.
Yeah,
like that's a car has a great front end.
But the Rivian, I think, of all the new startups, is screwed together the best. You can't believe that's that company's first vehicle.
Yes. I would agree.
You have
a post on everything you didn't like about the vehicle.
I did, yeah. Well, there's a bunch of, when we were driving cross country in it, I'm screaming at them like, "Why do you have a glass roof? We're in Mississippi. It's 106. We're dying." And the guys and there's Rivian employees in the backseat. It got so hot they finally stopped making excuses for it. They were like, "Oh, this sucks.
This sucks. It's hot."
And but I'm going to get it ceramic coated tint or whatever. But I loved it. I was like, this, first of all, it has 835 horsepower.
It drives good.
That's more horsepour than any Lamborghini ever.
You don't need it.
Then the Essenza only has 800.
I had them back to back.
Yeah.
I had the Ultima final edition Aventador.
Only 769
and then I got the
horsepower.
Rivian the following week, and I was like, this is dumb.
Yeah.
Well, there's that old when the Countach was out. What was the ad that it was a small car? And it said holds more.
It was a Volkswagen.
Well, there was
a
a Suzuki K car thing where it's like you can get 5 times as many women in this as you can a Countach.
That needs to be redone when like the Rivian R1S comes out, because it's like and we're faster than this
Yeah,
Lamborghini.
it was crazy.
They're not going to be quicker than Lambos, but they're. I mean, look
on paper,
0 to 60
or more
about
power.
3
or more horsepower
on off-road tires, like Pirelli Scorpion.
Yeah, it's an impressive truck.
All
It's
right.
very cool.
We've been getting multiple cut it out signs.
We got the light.
Oh yeah.
We just get yelled at if we're longer. So
the hook is coming.
But that's okay. We'll have Matt back.
Any last questions for Matt?
Thanks, guys.
I have some friends who want to talk to you when you get to Colorado Springs.
Yeah, I'm going to Pikes Peak.
Yeah.
I'll have a Lightning.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, I'm getting an
sweet.
induction burner, and we're going to be making bacon, egg, and cheeses for everybody on the mountain.
That's awesome.
You're getting an F-150 Lightning.
Next week?
No, a press car.
Next week?
A press car in Colorado Springs for Pikes Peak. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Oh.
What? Why?
Press cars are available?
Did you ask? Yeah, they are.
I mean, no comment on anything.
Yeah, okay. We'll have to figure that one out.
Yeah.
This will be a long time. This airs way after.
Press cars are available.
Again, this could be Jim Farley's non-traditional play.
Right. Boring MotorTrend.
Let's have Matt cook omelets.
That was the pitch.
Yeah.
What do you want to do? Make bacon, egg, and cheese on the mountain? Okay, cool.
On that note,
all right, guys.
thank you so
Great to
much
see
for
you.
coming in. Appreciate it, and we'll have you back
soon.
Eventually.
Yes.
You guys can come do my show and promote yours.
Amazing.
I've done that.
At Westside Collector Car Store.
Let's do it.
WCCS.com. Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.